I've got two mini tripods, both with some pros and some cons. This silver one has a nice swivel head that lets me point the camera wherever I want, but the legs are super flimsy. On the other hand, this black one here has some nice sturdy legs, but it's got a weird thread on top, which means it's not really good for anything. So what I want to do today is make some sort of Frankenstein tripod out of the ball head from this one and put it on the sturdy legs of the black one. Of course, I need to separate the ball head from the rest of the tripod, and that's easy enough just taking a screw out the back. This gave me a glimpse as to why this tripod was so flimsy. Usually there are two pins on each leg to hold it into position, but one of the legs had a pin snapped off, which meant it was just flopping around loose in there. These telescoping legs are pretty cool though, so I'll probably keep them for some future project. No idea what that will be, but if you've got any ideas, let me know. There was still a plate left in the bottom here that was being really stubborn, but it looked like it should come out, so I gave it a bit more oomph, and it popped straight out. And this should give me enough depth to glue in a nut that can screw onto the tripod thread. But of course, to do that, I need to have a nut to actually glue in, so I went to my trusty screw jar to see what I had. There were a few promising things, but I think most of the things I've got are metric, and I think the tripod thread is imperial, so you could get things a quarter turn on and then it would bind up. So I kept digging around, and eventually I found this. It is an incredibly thin little nut that only engages like one or two threads, but it's all we've got, so I'm just going to use it, and hopefully it can support the weight of a camera. Now you'll notice in the top of the ball head there are three little holes, and these actually go through to the mechanism beneath, and getting glue in there would be catastrophic, so I cut out a little bit of masking tape to make sure that nothing went down there. I could then drop in my nut and glue it in place. I think epoxy or something like that would have been much more appropriate for this, but I've got a bunch of super glue lying around, so that's what I used. I accidentally knocked it slightly out of position and had a bit of a nightmare putting it back in place, but I got there eventually. Once it was in place, I could lock it in with a bit of bicarb soda. I then just absolutely went to town with the superglue, completely flooding this thing until it was full to the brim with superglue and bicarb soda, which really locked the nut into position. And just to make sure everything was still working smoothly, I got my little test bolt out and tried to thread it in, and thankfully, not all was lost. I could just scrape out some gunk from the threads with the X-Acto blade, and everything actually was fine in the end, but it did give me a little raise of heart rate for a moment there. And with that, we've added the tripod thread to the ball head mount, so I can now put this on any tripod that I want. But I want to put it onto this specific tripod, which has a weird thread on the end that isn't a standard tripod thread. Thankfully though, I've got some bits and bobs lying around that let me make a weird adapter to go on the top of this tripod and convert it to a normal tripod thread. Now obviously this adds a lot of height to the tripod. I might cut down this bolt a bit later to get it nice and short, but for the moment it lets me screw the ball head onto this much sturdier tripod, making it so much more useful than it was before. It is a bit kooky looking, but you know, you take your wins when you can get them. You might be wondering why I didn't specifically make this ball head to fit the thread that's already on the tripod. And the reason is I've left my tripod down in my garage, but I still sometimes film projects up here in my study, and I don't want to have to lug my tripod up and down the 3 flights of stairs. So I've ended up leaving a light stand in here with a magic arm attached, but underneath this little cover here, there is in fact a normal tripod thread. So if I just remove the magic arm, I can now screw my new ball head attachment onto this tripod as well. And in this way, I've made it a lot more versatile than if I just made it specifically for the mini tripod. You might notice this is a very simple project, and that's actually intentional on my part. I think there's a tendency when you're making videos for YouTube that each project has to be bigger and better than the last one, and I think that's just not actually the case. I feel like my perception of what counts as worthy of making a video has gotten warped over time, and I want to try and scale that back because my intention with this channel is to just share things that I'm making with other people that enjoy making things as well, and showing that it's not actually some big thing that you have to be a maker to be able to make things. Anyone can make things with whatever they've got lying around, and that's what I'm trying to get across with these videos. So I think if I'm going down the route of making bigger and bigger things, it's going to be less and less accessible to just people who want to make things. So I've intentionally made this a very simple video. A huge catalyst in helping me reframe my thinking has been watching Evan Monsma's videos. I've mentioned him on this channel before, and if you haven't seen his videos, absolutely go and check them out. If you like what I do, you'll absolutely love what he does. He does this thing every October where he makes something every single day and often puts a video out about it, which is insane to me, but it's been so inspiring to see him just create things, and that passion has worked its way into me as well. And so I'm often doing these little sorts of projects that I don't film because I don't feel like they're enough to be in a video. But him posting all his stuff has made me realize that I get to decide what's enough for a video, and I've decided this is enough for a video. By the way, the camera that I'm filming this on is on the tripod right now with the new ball head, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, I just wanted to say I recognize this is a bit of a smaller project, but I'm going to be doing that intentionally now, and I just want to share things that I'm creating. So I hope you've enjoyed the video. Thank you so much for watching. Of course, a huge thank you to the channel members as well for supporting this channel. I appreciate you all so much. I hope to see you again soon.